Thank you. That was very helpful, because usually when I start talking about glamour, I have to start by disappointing you that we're not going to be talking about pretty British women taking their tops off. That this is about something that takes a lot of different forms, including the glamour to a little boy of driving a steam train. If you want to be recognized, to be famous, to be appreciated, you might find the red carpet glamorous. But if you'd rather get away from things and have tranquility, this might be a more glamorous picture. Glamour is a form of communication, primarily visual, although sometimes it's an idea. It's a form of communication the way humor is a form of communication. Humor makes us feel amused, makes us laugh. How do we tell something is humorous? Because the audience laughs. Glamour makes us feel a pang of longing and projection. If only life could be like that. If only I could drive that car. If only I could have that job. If only I could date that person. If only I could be that person. Whoops. If only I could be a grown-up, beautiful movie star. If only I could be an astronaut. And in fact, when I was a little girl, back in the 1960s, we're all so old here, back in the 1960s, the most glamorous thing you could possibly imagine being was an astronaut. And, you know, this is why 3 billionaires have their own space programs. In the consumer world, glamour, you know, we see something glamorous, we see a glamorous product, and it draws on our deep longings. The beautiful dress says to the lady, "Buy me, lady, and I will make you into a beautiful and whole and complete human being." "Don't be silly," said the man, "for a dress alone cannot do that." "True," said the lady, "I will have the bag and the shoes as well." And this is, you know, we're making fun of glamour here. How many women have convinced themselves to buy shoes or dresses that they rarely wear because they just imagine themselves in that perfect thing? And of course, it is all us silly women. No man would ever buy a pair of shoes because of glamour. And of course, there are many companies built on that idea that if you get the Air Jordans or the, you know, more recent ones, you can be a special someone. Glamour, like humor, takes many different forms. It depends on the audience, and it depends on context, just like we were hearing about the joke with the spoon. To a woman, American housewife in the 1950s, this was an incredibly glamorous picture. What does it represent? Her husband must be doing very well because it's very expensive, and he must love her. So love, appreciation, and money. Always good for glamour, those things. But they take different forms. Nowadays, this would be a more glamorous photo to a busy professional woman or a busy mom. She's less concerned about really big luxuries and more concerned about tranquility and getting away and avoiding all the buzz and the busyness. Suppose you want to be special. You want to feel extraordinary. Well, back in the day when Apple had, 2% of the market or something, and everybody thought it was on its way out, it turned that bug into a feature, and it said, "Think different. Be like Amelia Earhart," tapping into a glamorous icon who had been glamorous in her day and continued to be glamorous. Be like Albert Einstein. Think different. That was a very glamorous idea for a certain market. People want to be special. Glamour is not a style. It's not like you can just make mirrored furniture, but it always contains certain elements. And the first is the promise of escape and transformation. Glamour says, you know, buy this thing, go to this place, imagine this job, and you will be a different, better person in different, better circumstances. And this is why we see it used so often to sell travel and to sell fashion. And by fashion, I don't just mean apparel. I mean the kinds of dresses that, you know, no one has the body to wear, and certainly not the place to wear unless you happen to be an Oscar presenter. But it can sell much more mundane goods too. So Moleskine has used it very effectively to sell notebooks. I mean, a notebook is a very ordinary object, but they associated that with the glamour of travel, and a notebook also contains this potential. You could be a writer, you could be an artist, you just get the right tools. The second element that all glamour contains is grace, the art that conceals art. Glamour used to mean a literal magic spell. It's an old Scottish word. And literally, you cast a glamour on someone and they saw stuff that wasn't there. The cobwebs on the wall looked like a great tapestry. And glamour still contains this element of illusion and magic. Glamour hides things. It hides difficulties. It hides costs. It hides flaws. It hides effort. We often hear the word effortless used in conjunction with glamour. So Apple solves very complicated problems without letting people know how hard the problem was, making their products more glamorous. You show people, you want to get people to go to LA where I live, you show them this picture. This is not what the Pacific Coast Highway looks like unless you close it off. It is full of traffic. It is a beautiful view, but other than that, you will not be alone on the road. And one of the things that glamour hides is all the support structure. The support structure including the lamp cords. Whenever you see a picture in an interiors magazine or a catalog, if there's a lamp, chances are it either runs by batteries or magic, because they don't want you thinking about that cord. They don't want you thinking about tripping over it. They don't want you thinking about how your plug is over there and the place you'd like to use it is over there. Anything that breaks the spell, glamour has to leave that out. So back in the 90s, this used to be a super glamorous sort of stock art picture. You'd put it, you'll have your laptop and you'll go to the beach and you'll just be free as a bird. And of course, back in the 90s, I had a laptop in the 90s, but most people didn't. And so they imagined that this wasn't going to be work. And they also imagined that they'd be able to see the screen on the beach. So glamour leaves things out. And one of the glamorous concepts that I love today is the cloud. Whoever named it the cloud was a genius. Because, a server farm someplace you don't know where your data is, that's not good. It's in the cloud. It's with the angels in heaven. How could you not trust them? So the final element that all glamour contains is mystery. And mystery has two functions. It helps the grace because it helps hide things. You don't know where the server farm is. We call it the cloud, and okay, that's mysterious. And it also is intriguing. We want to know more, and that enhances that projection. We want to, you like the idea of being an entrepreneur. That's a glamorous idea. You want to learn more, but you don't really know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. If you come here, you hear all these war stories. Maybe it changes your mind. Glamour is neither transparent, that word we love so much today, these days, nor opaque. It's translucent. It gives you just enough information to invite you in. So often in commerce or also in other things, glamour is used in a way where it's distant. We talk about a distant place or a distant time. Ralph Lauren had these safari collections year after year, and he said, I never went to Africa. And if I had, I probably wouldn't have designed the clothes that I did. But it gave me an idea about dressing and desire. It was a glamorous idea of Africa. It wasn't about a real place. It was about a place in his imagination. Similarly, the future has been a glamorous concept for many, many years, at least since the 19th century. We can put our hopes and dreams in the future and imagine, because it's inherently mysterious. And I argue, somewhat controversially, but people have responded to it very well, that in fact Star Trek was glamorous to its audience. I did a big survey when I was doing the book, 1,400 Star Trek fans completed this really ridiculously long surveys, but and I learned a lot, and I learned some things that were just confirmation of things that I already knew, that people liked the idea of adventure and learning new things and technology and the future. But one thing I didn't know that came out from doing the survey was that for many people, the Enterprise represented a glamorous idea of the ideal workplace. They wanted to work in Star Trek. They wanted to work in a place where everybody had a job to do and did it well, where everything was fair, where the boss wasn't crazy, and if he was, it was settled by the end of the episode. And if you had a problematic colleague, that person was probably killed by the end of the episode. But most of all, where everybody was appreciated and they contributed to a team and they were doing something important. It was a glamorous idea of a workplace, and whether it came from Star Trek or some other source, I think that ideal of a workplace has become very powerful and pervasive, particularly in technology, over the past few decades. So I'll end with this. This is one of the most glamorous photographs taken. It's in my book. This is a photograph by a man named Julius Schulman, who took a lot of pictures of modern homes, particularly in Southern California. And this is a house that has the glamorous name of Case Study House number 22. But this is certainly a very glamorous picture. And why is it glamorous? It's amazing because glamour requires mystery, and yet here is glamour in a transparent box. How does that work? Well, the first thing is that he gives us the lights of LA below, which, like a scene, a skyline. Every one of those little dots represents a potential life, and you could move there and seek your fortune and enjoy that life and live in a house like this. And who are these two women? That's the other key mystery. We don't know them. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're talking about, but we want to join them because there's nothing more mysterious than other human beings, and therefore nothing more potentially glamorous, except perhaps the future. In the 1930s, a photographer named George Harrell was the famous Hollywood photographer who created a lot of these super glamorous movie star portraits. And people used to ask him, George, what's your secret? And he said, this is stupid. This is a stupid question. Bring out the best, conceal the worst, and leave something to the imagination. And so that's to which I would add, give your audience a promise of escape and transformation. He didn't have to do that because the movie star portrait did it for him. Bring out the best, conceal the worst, and leave something to the imagination. Thank you. We have a little time for questions.
I don't know if I'll come on. Yeah, don't worry. I don't know if we've got any mics. Question. We've got a couple of minutes. Question for Virginia, and I'll relay it. Some. Yeah, shout, please.
Okay, so the question is, how do you balance glamour and ethics? Okay, let me back up. I'll get to that specific question, but one of the things about glamour is it's an illusion. So is that bad? And people always ask me, do I think glamour is good or bad? And I actually think it's neutral. It can be a very powerful, first of all, we can really enjoy it, and it can also be a very powerful spur to action, including good action. But if you're going to act on glamour as opposed to just have a momentary reverie, you have to remember and think about what's left out. And what I would say in terms of ethics is, if you're using glamour, what are you leaving out? Glamour is like a stage magic trick most of the time. The audience is suspending their disbelief. They aren't really thinking that the lamp cords, that the lamps run on batteries. They just aren't thinking about the lamp cord. When they go to the store, the lamp will have a cord, and they'll have to think about it. So you need to think about, okay, we're using glamour. What are we leaving out? Is it something really important? Are we actively deceiving people, or are we just, prettying up and making a sort of an idealized image or an idealized in something that people can enjoy? And different people are going to draw that line different ways, and a lot depends on context. But again, I tend to advise people more as individuals acting on glamour, and also as citizens, because I didn't talk about this, but I could put the picture of the high-speed rail line that the citizens of California have voted to spend billions of dollars on. It goes from nowhere to nowhere, and it has huge cost overruns. But every time somebody writes an article for this, there's this beautiful, glamorous, streamlined train with the picture. So, forget your arguments. Everybody's like, I want to be on that train. It's so beautiful. It's no traffic. So, there is this question of what's left out, and that is important to remember if you're going to act on glamour as opposed to just enjoy it.
Virginia Postrel, thank you.
Thank you.